Hi, gang. Good evening or good morning, wherever you're at. I don't know, but I hope you're watching this, and I hope that this Wednesday is finding you well. Don't mind me, it's my morning cup of coffee. How's everyone doing today? I'm going to post this also on Facebook for later, but I really felt led of the Lord with this morning's devotions. And I've been really burdened about this for a while. And to have this opportunity to YouTube and to post it online with Facebook gives me this opportunity. It's something I've been incredibly burdened over and something I want to share with all of you, especially with every woman out there. Now, this morning, as I was reading out of First Thessalonians 4, these verses just leapt out at me, but other verses leapt out at me too when I was reading this. And I want to read this morning's devotions again, specifically, verses 9 through 12. And Paul says, "But concerning brotherly love, you have no need that I should write to you, for you yourselves are taught by God to love one another, and indeed you do so toward all the brethren who are in Macedonia. But we urge you, brethren, that you increase more and more." And here's the main emphasis I want to focus on, verses 11 and 12. Listen very carefully, please. "That you also aspire to lead a quiet life, to mind your own business, and to work with your own hands as we commanded you, that you may walk properly, toward those who are outside, and that you may lack nothing." Now, there's some very interesting things here that I got out of this. And I want to ask you something here, and I'm hoping and praying. There's no right or wrong answer, but don't mind my asking. But if you guys ever encountered somebody who's absolutely a 100% nosy busybody, you ever dealt with someone who just wants to know every single stinking thing about you, no matter what it is? And even worse, have you ever encountered somebody who's not only this way, they are also a gossip? The Bible describes them as a talebearer. And I'm telling you, I have. And trust me when I tell you, these people are dangerous. Okay, they not only attempt to interfere through their meddling and their nosiness and sticking, their nose in where it doesn't belong, but when they start talking about people that they're meddling with or stalking, because I think this is a form of stalking, they just totally ruin lives and trash reputations. This is what I mean. Listen to these verses and really think about this very carefully. Starts off with here, Proverbs 19, verse 16. "Thou shalt not go up and down as a talebearer among thy people, neither shalt thou stand against the blood of thy neighbor. I am the Lord." That first part, "thou shalt not go up and down as a talebearer among thy people." And then Proverbs offers some incredible insight in this area. Proverbs 11:13 says, "A talebearer revealeth secrets, but he that is of a faithful spirit concealeth the matter." And here, Proverbs 20, verse 19, "He that goeth about as a talebearer revealeth secrets. Therefore meddle not with him that flattereth with his lips." And I go to this one after Proverbs 20, verse 19, I go to Proverbs 18, verse 18. "The words of a talebearer are as wounds, and they go down into the innermost parts of the belly." And last but certainly not least, Proverbs 26, verse 20. "Where no wood is, there the fire goeth out. So where there is no talebearer, the strife ceaseth." Now, I read these verses for a reason, okay? I read these verses because they have very intricate meaning. In the Ten Commandments alone here, you see, or not just the Ten Commandments, but in God's laws, one of the biggest things that he says is, "You shall not go up and down as a talebearer among thy people." He's basically stating here, don't go up and down as a blabbermouth gossip. Don't go blabbing everything you hear or think you hear. As I was reading this morning's devotions and reading all these, I was reminded of something called a game called Whisper Down the Lane. Has anybody ever heard that? I have. And I'm telling you, it's a fun game, but it's kind of corny. It's kind of cuckoo because it takes a sentence or a phrase and people pass that on, but the problem is in the process, they don't have the correct conversation. They don't have, like, let's say if I were to say, it's going to be sunny out today, and so-and-so's invited us to a picnic. Imagine people passing that along. But by the time it goes down to the last person, it's just totally screwed up, if you see what I mean. And it's interesting in this because this is talked about when Solomon and when the Lord himself, most of all, is talking about this. He's basically stating that when it comes to this, we are not to act as gossips and busybodies. We're not to act like, how do I put this? We're not to act like it's our right to know everybody's business, because it isn't. And these verses that I just read speak volumes against that. You know, Proverbs 11:13 in particular. You know, what, you want somebody revealing your secrets? You want somebody meddling into your life? And I was thinking way back to something my mom shared. And I'm sure when my mom watches this, she'll more than understand. She was sharing with a few women in a Bible study when I was younger. Imagine this. You're driving by this tavern called the Friendly Tavern, and there is one in existence, by the way. You drive by it and you happen to see my car. And you're kind of wondering, that's really odd. What's Pat Kowinski's car doing here? The proper thing to do in this this situation is you ask God for wisdom and you approach the person in private and ask them, I happen to see your car here. But the problem is, and you hate to say this, not very many people do that. They decide to jump to conclusions and start blabbing to everybody that Pat Kowinski's an alcoholic, when in reality, that's not the case. The godly thing to do is go to the person and say, hey, please don't mind me, but I was driving by the other day, this road the other day by this place called the Friendly Tavern, and I happened to see your car there. I'm a little concerned. And my mom would say, which was very truthful, oh, it's nothing to worry about. My parents own that business, and their home is directly up above the tavern, and I was visiting my parents. You see, if somebody would take the time to ask a question to that person, politely, mind you, and not do it in an accusatory way, you'd find out the answers. You know, my husband once said to me, he made this quote, and it was more than likely from from the Three Stooges. When you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. And I firmly believe that. You know, I was thinking, how many lives get ruined? Because, James chapter 3 about the tongue. I'm going to read that in case anybody's wondering here, because I think it's important. James really hits the nail on the head in this area when it comes to the tongue. He says here, but no man can tame the tongue. It is an unruly evil full of poison. With it we bless our God and Father, and with it we curse men, who have been made in the similitude of God. Out of the same mouth proceed blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not to be so. That's what it is like when we gossip, when we meddle in somebody's business without their permission, and we try to tell them either how to run their lives, or we stalk them and we follow them everywhere to see if they're going to do some form of wrong. And then we go back to the church to the pastor and tell the pastor what's going on. Now, if you're a pastor and watching this, I hope and pray you tell that person to shut up and stop gossiping. I happen to know of a pastor or two that has done just the opposite. And one of them, God judged deeply. He's gone. But I know of others who have been bold enough and godly enough to say, knock it off, you're gossiping. I don't want to hear it. And I've also seen people who, instead of opening their big mouths and saying something that's going to really cost them a great deal, they choose to go to the Lord and say, Lord, I need your help with this. I need to know, is this something I should be saying? Is this something that is worth others to hear? Most of all, is this true? And what I'm going to do today is, as I'm closing this post for tonight, I want to urge all of you to seek the Lord every day in what you say as well as what you do. Ask Him for guidance in what you say, whether it's in person or online, to make sure it's glorifying and honoring to God. To do as Psalm 141 verse 3 states, and ask God to set a watch over your mouth and guard the door of your lips. Remember, I had said earlier in one of my posts about having a big mouth. Ask God for His help in controlling that, in controlling your tongue, to give you the words needed to bring grace to those who hear it. Ask God to help you not only speak any form of gossip or say anything hurtful or nasty about anyone, but that you steer away from any gossip that says anything hurtful or nasty about anyone. And that whether the words that you speak to anyone, whether it's in person or online, that they bring glory and honor to the Lord. But most of all, remember this one important thing. Ask God to help you remember this. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. I've got to get going. This is something, don't mind that background. There's nobody getting murdered here, at least not yet. Well, that's okay, babe. I'm sure that'll add to this since it's nearly Halloween. I love my husband. But I just pray that you really think about that. Please think about what I've said. I'm going to close this, and I also want to post a couple of very interesting song that deals a lot about this. It's written by a quartet. I don't know if they're still in existence, called the Cathedral Quartet. One of their bass singers, George Yantz, who's with the Lord, did this song. It's called The Rumor Mill. Go ahead and click on it and listen to it. And I really pray that God challenges you on this. You guys have a really wonderful day. And remember, think before you speak. Bye for now.